This is the Invincible podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're talking about Invincible, Episode 7, We Need to Talk.
Mark. We need to talk.
Welcome back, Guardians, to the penultimate episode of the Invincible podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're talking about Episode 7, We Need to Talk. I'm one of your hosts, Chris. No, I'm not.
That's a brilliant...
There you go. How did that happen?
I don't know. But
I was going to say, Chris, we need to talk.
I know.
So, yeah.
So you're actually Derek. And
I'm one of your hosts,
Chris.
Derek, and that's Chris. Yes. Exactly.
He's so excited to talk about this We Need to Talk episode. He forgot his name.
Yeah.
Which I find even better, that this is just like a Christmas present in April.
You see, what happens is I'm off now on holidays. It's my last day of actual work. I've got a full week off, and now I just get to podcast for a couple of days before I finish completely for the week. So I'm just completely excited at the moment. It couldn't be better. Beautiful day outside, so I'm able to go out in the garden, hopefully, for the week. But yeah, I'm just overexcited and ready to talk about Invincible, Chris. That's what it is.
I know, because you know what? It's the penultimate. Yes, the penultimate. I love saying that word.
I know you do.
It's really good. Penultimate. Yes, I am so happy to talk about this episode. This is getting closer and closer to the reveal that I think is going to, like, you know, where we basically saw people's heads explode in this episode. Gonna do that.
Right.
More of a mind explosion. Because obviously if people's head exploding is a bad thing.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, they certainly like to tease it this episode. It was the right name for it. We need to talk, because the whole episode, it felt like we were having Nolan telling us, "I'll tell you in a second. I'll tell you exactly why I did what I did. Just in one second. Just give me a second. Calm down." And then it gets to the end, and it ends with, "Mark, we need to talk." And then goes to credits with no post-credit scene, nothing. So, yeah, we need to talk about this episode, Chris.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Guardians, thank you for joining us. Remember, as we come into the finale of Invincible, make sure you pop over to our website, to tvpodcastindustries.com, and leave us your feedback to what you think this series so far. You can leave us a voicemail there, or you can send the feedback to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. Or, more importantly, we would love you to subscribe so you make sure you get the finale and all our other fun things. You can do that on any flying or grounded podcast service, or by heading on over to tvpodcastindustries.com. I think I said .com a lot of times so far.
I think you did there, Chris. Yeah. Yes. But thanks so much to all of you who've been supporting us and following us for the Invincible podcast. It's been great fun talking about our first animated show, I think, since we started podcasting 6 years ago. I don't think we've talked about an animated show, so a very new one for us.
Yeah, who knew there would be so much more blood than in some of the live actions that we've been doing?
Very, very true. Let's get into the episode, Chris. Once again, show's created by Robert Kirkman, Corey Walker, and Ryan Otley. The episode written by Simon Rakopia. This is Simon's second episode this season. He also wrote episode 2 as well. So gets 2 big episodes for this season, which is pretty cool. The episode was directed by Vinton Hook. Vinton has worked in probably some of the biggest animated shows of the last 10 years, including The Batman back in 2008. Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, 3 Transformers series, Young Justice, and most recently 4 episodes of Harley Quinn. He's directed.
So good.
You love Harley Quinn, don't you?
I really do. Like, if this has escaped anyone's radar, please watch it. Mm-hmm. It's just comedic gold.
Yeah.
With a beautiful DC finish on it. And you've got some fantastic actors in there, including Kaylee Kuko, and a host of other really well-known voice actors, and celebrities just cameo drop in for this one silly little voice and then pop out.
Excellent.
It's great.
Excellent, and it is about as ultra-violent as Invincible is too.
Yeah, less realistic. But
Yes.
as ultra-violent.
Yeah, that's true. But still a kind of similar level of violence as well in every episode. Definitely for the adults, not for the kids in the family. Definitely. Chris, do you want to tell us what they gave us with the synopsis for this episode of Invincible?
Sure. Feeling lost and confused, Mark looks for advice from Eve. At the same time, everyone's looking for him.
And no mention of all of the violent acts that are going on from from Omni-Man in this episode at all in the synopsis.
Or Robot.
Or anything about Robot.
It's just like, by the way, yeah, this is this small sub-story just going on in the background. No. Like, literally, the Mark part is the smallest.
Absolutely.
I love the synopsis writer in this.
I love it. I love it. Really, really good. Let's start exactly there, Chris, on the smallest part of the episode. We're going to talk about our top points for the episode. Let's kick off with, I guess, the repercussions of Amber and Mark breaking up in last week's episode, because they are still broken up. But I like how they handle it here, where William and Mark and Amber are traveling back from Upstate University after last week's episode. Mark chases Amber into her home and tries to tell her he's invincible. Once again, we get that moment where he tries to say his own name out loud, and then the door closes in his face.
Yep, I loved it. It's either going to be the running joke that he never gets to say his own name for the whole of this, not just season, but the series in general.
I think he's only said it like once, maybe.
Yeah.
I think the first episode, I think he might have said it. Maybe.
I'm going to check that.
Yeah.
Well, we'll source check that, or also we now have a corrections corner as well, so you can just let us know.
Absolutely.
But I'd love to see if they don't, and it's just forever he's never said Invincible. It's just going forward for the rest of it. Anyway, continue. This is great because it does allow us to get to that point where, like, he floats up through the window in his costume, and he goes, "But I'm invincible." Now this is going to explain it all away.
Yeah.
And yeah, she knew. She figured that out ages ago, because in a world where superheroes are real and people keep disappearing and late, you're going to start putting two and two together.
Well, yeah, if William could recognize that Mark is invincible by seeing him once in the costume, surely Amber, who's been very close to Mark for quite a few weeks now.
Close. Medically close.
Medically close, yes. Surely she would recognize that that's just him. But I love the idea that this is just because you didn't even trust me, she says to him. So the fact that he didn't trust her, the fact that he's been making excuses constantly for everything that's been going on is the reason why they're still broken up. So I like this because it's playing on the idea of the secret identity, the keeping your loved ones in the dark, throughout comic books and throughout movies. I think that's a really good twist on it here.
Yeah, because the whole thing is, yes, I did it to keep you safe. Like, it's the whole, like, it's literally in every comic book. It's why Superman didn't tell Lois for years, why Spider-Man and MJ, it's in everything. And it always comes down to, you do not reveal your secret identity so that your loved ones aren't put in danger.
Exactly.
It cannot be linked back to you.
Absolutely. And here with Mark, all he's really wearing are a pair of shades. Like, he's got his hair exposed, he's got his full face exposed, other than a pair of shades. And if you don't recognize your boyfriend when he's wearing a pair of shades, that's a bit of a problem, right? It's
true. It is very true. And by the way, let's talk about those shades. They get smashed in nearly every episode now.
Yeah.
It was only recently I went, yeah, glass in the eye. Like, he's getting close to glass shards in the eye every episode.
But I guess that's one of his invincible powers, right? To not get his eyes wrecked by glasses breaking into them. I guess that's why Art is actually still alive. The costume supplier Art is still alive, because you got to get those replaced that often if you're in the business of Invincible and Omni-Man. So that's probably why he survived. Okay, all right, you might know my secret, but I'm going to keep you alive. But anyway, I just wanted to circle back on their breakup and their relationship. I also wanted to just quickly touch on William as well. So we kind of see that he's pretty much in mourning. And I like how they show that on screen, because it's basically him eating burgers all the way throughout the episode. I think every time you see him, he's either playing with food or eating food. So he's definitely taken solace in that after losing Rick last episode.
Yeah, I find this fun. This was the kind of, like, of course, it's the old story. Boy finds boy falls in love with boy turns into cyborg. Cyborg fights boy's superhero friend. Superhero friend has to take down cyborg boy and all of his other friends, and then government takes away cyborg boy, so boy who fell in love with cyborg boy ends up with nothing. It's that old story,
Chris. It's amazing how often that happens.
It is really, like, you think it would be a tired story, but it's just not. It's as classic as the world.
Yeah.
I like they even make a joke about that. It's like, I found the perfect man. He gets turned into a cyborg. And you're like, yeah, okay. I can see that being annoying.
Absolutely. I have the question from the audience that doesn't read comic books and doesn't know, is there a future here for these characters? William poses the question as to whether he'll see Rick again, and Mark's telling him, well, Cecil's got it in hand. He's a good man. He'll sort him out. He'll bring him back. We see later on in the episode, there are more Reanimen that have been created, and it's not Rick, as far as I could tell, because he gives an explanation to that, which we'll talk about later. But I don't want to ask the question out loud, but I know all the audience watching the episode is asking the question, will we see Rick again? Can we trust Cecil to do his job? Or Cecil's got quite a lot of other stuff going on his plate at the moment. Does he really care about restoring some college student back to being his former self for his boyfriend?
It's a very good question.
Okay.
That is all I can say. It's a good question. Who knows?
I love it. You're like asking my mom whether we're getting dessert, Chris.
It's a good question.
It's a good question. You'll find it.
If you're a good audience, we might stop for ice cream.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
But don't make me turn this car around. Okay, the meeting with William, by the way, and Omni-Man.
Yes.
That was fantastic.
Yeah.
The menace in J.K. Simmons is just fantastic. I love when he gets so angry and he's just that deadpan, and William is just quaking in his boots.
Totally. Yeah.
Like, again, you're like, he goes, "Oh, Mr. Omni-Man, Mr. Thompson,
Yeah, he even calls him Mr. Grayson, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And he hasn't known his secret identity up until this episode. Mark tells him in this episode that his dad is Omni-Man. so, and then suddenly when he meets him in the street, he calls him Mr. Grayson. So, I guess revealing to him that Mark has shared the secret identity in some way as well. So, but I love, it's a really good moment between the two of them where William is answering every single question as quickly as he can, because he knows this guy looks pretty angry. And all he gets is a big fist mark in the top of his car from Omni-Man as he leaves.
I actually missed that point.
Yeah, he's
nice.
Holding back his rage on William. So William is very much right to tell him everything he knew.
That was good.
Yeah, really, really good.
This all leads to what I think is probably one of the best parts, which is Mark finding Eve, going to Eve for his advice, counsel, I think is probably the best.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I love Eve, and I can see this, a budding relationship, a budding kind of, we'll just call it platonic friendship first and then move on, maybe who knows where it goes, is that she calls him on his shit, to put it the best way. Like, he's all very, woe is me, no, it's not fair about me. And she calls him on it. When he's talking about Amber, he goes, no, you did all this.
Yeah.
Like, I supported you to a point, but this is on you.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, it's not. And I'm done helping people and like all of this. And she just goes, well, fine, stay here and don't help people. I'm going to save the world.
Yeah.
That's what I think is going to be fantastic. It's fantastic foreshadowing, if we call it that, of her being able to essentially put him in his place and call him on his BS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Like, we see her still truly saving the world. We have that moment where she's saying she was a superhero with that team. What were they? Were the Teen Titans? Was that? No, that's
Teen Team.
Teen Team. That's it. Yes, they were the Teen Team. Earlier on in the series, we saw that she'd been working with them for about 3 years, and she's saying, in the last couple of days, I've saved more people than I did in those last 3 years, doing what she's doing now, actually going out and using her powers to help the world rather than going out and beating up aliens effectively.
Yeah.
So loved her scene where she's waking up in the morning, and making her coffee from scratch, using her powers, cleaning her clothes with the powers, I guess, rather
making new clothes.
Is it making new clothes from scratch? Yeah.
Her whole thing is she can rearrange subatomic particles.
Right. So she rearranges the dirt out of the old subatomic particles.
But also her face and her hair.
Yes.
Which I was like, oh.
That seems weird, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just like, Yeah.
Would you not just create a shower and
yeah, exactly. That would have
yourself?
been where I was going to, but like that's the whole thing where like Superman shaves with a mirror and his heat vision, and I'm like, yeah, no, or it's like Superman gets clean by flying up closer into the sun and burns off all the dirt and then comes back.
But that is a pretty good explanation. I remember people talking about that with the beard on Henry Cavill in Justice League or in Man of Steel, where they were kind of going, is that because razors break when Superman puts them towards his face? Has he got super powered hair on his face, you know?
The follicles are invincible.
Exactly, but
follicles of steel.
A mirror and eye rays, that's pretty cool. What else is there about Eve from this episode? What else is going on with her?
Well, we see, if you pause it very quick, like, I've learned now from the Invincible HQ on Twitter, there is Easter eggs galore in every episode that I've missed. Like, I'll jump back very quickly. Back when Debbie is looking at houses and is trying to sell the Red Rush's wife's house.
Yeah.
There's Easter eggs in the listings on the computer that she's looking at for the house.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like, it's deep cuts.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, I'm going to have to rewatch this on slow, like 0.25 speed. Thank you. But on her phone, you see her as she's scrolling through her feed. It's her social media feed, I think, is their version of Twitter or whatever. You see people from the last episode thanking her for saving her vineyard. Saving the vineyard from the crops.
Very good, yes.
At Atomic Eve.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much what people would do if you were a superhero. Look, it's like, hey, want me to help you? At me on Twitter.
Absolutely.
There we go. Right. I'm off now to save you. There you go.
Actually, isn't that one of the metrics in the Miles Morales PlayStation 5 game, Chris? That's one of the things. He sets up his own social media so people can go out and ask him for help. Yeah. So Eve has that as well, basically.
Yeah. She has her own app.
I'm liking Eve. Definitely liking the idea of a superhero going out and saving the world rather in a real way rather than just fighting off creatures and interplanetary monsters and stuff like that. So keep an eye on her. I definitely keep an eye on the relationship between her and Mark, in the episode. The last episode, I guess, next week. Our second point is, Robot becomes a real boy. This was
the Pinocchio story.
Yes. This was definitely a theory of mine about Robot, that there was something, possibly because of the, I guess, completely uncreative name of calling the robot. I would kind of go, yeah, I guess that's going to be the twist, I guess, of the future. But I did really like that he is so prepared for dealing with the Mulder twins throughout this episode. I think it's really, really good. The fact that he arrives with the hologram driver on the van, knowing the Mulder twins are going to attack the van, so sets all that up and is ultra prepared, as has an option, knows to scan the body for any kind of things they may have planted within the body that they've created from over the last couple of episodes. That's really smart. That's really a really robot thing to do, I guess. I gets him to remove it all and says, what's his line to them? I would have been offended if you hadn't even tried.
Yeah, exactly. To be fair, you would be. Like, it's like, hey, do you not consider me a threat? Okay, now you do. Good, I feel better. Exactly.
Well, I love that he gives them this option of having a collar that can control anybody that's wearing the collar. That's the option that he gives them if they finish their work. They do finish their work, and then Robot comes back to being a superhero effectively and goes, right, you're going back to prison.
Yep.
So, the Waller twins, while supremely intelligent in science, are very stupid in terms of what they expect people to do with them. They seem to not know about the consequences of things, but are very good at scientific problems, right?
Hey, look, what Mauler A to Mauler B even asked, did you call me stupid? Like, when they're transferring the consciousness. So, it's like, I've never seen, brain density matter like this before.
Yeah.
It's basically signaling how ultra kind of intelligent Robot was.
Yes. Yeah.
Because he just made a copy of himself. So the question is the body of Rex that he is now in as smart as the other body?
That's interesting. I was expecting the whole time, because they were doing that countdown thing that you always see at these kind of these kind of moments and these kind of scientific moments. They're showing the countdown. They're showing the percentage of brain power being transferred from one to the other and the capacity. And I was waiting for it to break at like 70%, and it didn't. It hit the 100% to finish the transfer effectively. But it will be interesting whether there's something wrong with the body that's there.
Yeah. What did you think of this? This is straight from the comic book. So this was what I'm very interested to see how this goes down. Because it is it's okay. It's a story as old as time. I'm not joking. It is literally Pinocchio.
Well, yes.
It's the story of a boy. He wants to be a real boy.
Yeah.
Although, to a degree, so this is I don't think they fully explain this as well as I would hope.
Okay.
What do you understand about the real body of Robot?
Well, what I understand about the story here is that he had no particular intention of becoming a real boy until meeting Monster Girl. He's doing it for her, it feels like, because he started to fall for her. We saw him trying to save her from death, much more than trying to save Samson, in the last episode. So you definitely saw there was some kind of thing building up at Robot. The fact that he chose Rexplode's body, and I love how this is explained in the episode when we see Rexplode meet his younger self effectively going, hang on a second, isn't this a bit creepy? What have you done here? The fact that he chose Rexplode's body because Monster Girl showed a little bit of kind of interest in the look of Rexplode when they met first, very creepy.
Yeah.
He's a 30-year-old man, is what we hear as well from Robot. So he's been around a long time. He seems incapable of dealing with other humans, which is possibly why he works well as a robot, I guess. But that's, I guess, what I understand about the story is that he's doing it for Monster Girl and has chosen this particular body because it's Rexplode's younger body and she found it attractive.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole thing, which I don't think ever got fully explained, which is a shame. The real robot cannot survive in normal atmosphere. He basically was sealed in fluid on a life support machine. He is supremely intelligent, as we heard. They just don't go into it. It's like, essentially, he is Richter scales above other people.
Right.
Intelligent.
Off the charts, yeah.
Off the chart, and his brain matter is so dense. So, but he was deformed in the way that he can't do anything. So he built robots to essentially be his eyes and ears in the world so that he could do that. It's the thing. Because the real world essentially kills him.
Yeah.
Real oxygen burns him. And so he was content for the last 30 years living like this, but then, he starts to fall in love with Monster Girl. Mm-hmm. It's slightly different in the comic books, but essentially the same.
Yeah.
But I just wish they had gone a bit more into that part because it's just, I think they skipped over that. He was a human 30-year-old man who's so intelligent and now has fallen in love and now is in the body of 15-year-olds. So look, we will see how it goes. Mm-hmm. I just think there is also some fantastic storylines with this character going forward. And I know I sound like that really annoying guy in the comic book shop or video shop that goes,
you've got to read the other 100
You've got to read the other 130 episodes. Yeah. It's like Star Trek. It gets really good around season 8 and there's this one particular part. I know I sound like that. I don't mean to. But there is just some amazing, again, one of my favorite comic book series in all time.
Excellent.
Robot's introduced in pretty much one of the earliest issues ever. Mm-hmm. And we have a story arc going all the way to issue 140 something.
Yeah.
With this character.
Yeah.
It's ultimate good.
Right.
Because you get the peaks and troughs of character arcs. Literally. And let's call this, you've seen a condensed version of the first arc, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. But as the non-reader of Invincible, what I would say is they're giving a great story and putting a lot of stuff on screen. I do feel there's times in the episodes I feel like they're reaching for stuff that must be years into things that are happening for these characters. I read something that there was one particular bit of one of the episodes that was taken from issue 50, which is about what's that, about 4 or 5 years of a comic book run is
Yeah.
episode 50, right? So, or issue 50. So it feels like they're pulling bits from all over the comic book. So I'm wondering where we're going next episode. I know this story of Omni-Man is one that's resolved early enough, in the comic books. It's not something that lasted it's not something that lasted till issue 100 or anything. No. So I suppose what I'm really saying is 7 episodes into the show, I'm hoping they get a season 2, and I'm hoping they haven't burnt all the great storylines from season 1. So, but I keep being told no.
No. And that's the really great part. But
excellent.
You spoke slightly about Omni-Man there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on because essentially this is as you said, we need to talk about this point of ours, point number 3. We need to talk. Before we even get into the whole thing, where you see him talking on the top of the Himalayas or the Alps, and they frame it in that way to make it look like he is talking to Mark.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh wow, they're blowing their load early. Oh my god. Like,
they've skipped that completely, yes.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, this is how, because trying to do the mental gymnastics of, okay, how's this going to work later on?
Mm-hmm.
No, it was just beautifully, it is that, if you're going to have this really important conversation with your son or your father or your mother or your sister, your daughter, your wife, etc., you sometimes practice it in a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Or you sometimes at least mentally prepare. And I thought this was cute that he was preparing this conversation, except you never learn what this conversation is.
Yeah.
I think it's the best part.
So evil, like even the conversation that he has before Debbie leaves, the kind of opening scene of the episode with Debbie approaching him and giving him an opportunity to explain it to her. And as I kind of joked about earlier on, his response is, give me a second, we need to take time. And she's going, you've got your time. Tell me right now what it was. Yep. And he's going, I will tell you. You just need to understand, and I'll explain it to you. And she's going, right, if you don't tell me right now, you need to get out of my house. and he doesn't tell her. And then the whole episode, it is just waiting for him to say the words as to what it is that he's done and why he's done what he's done, with the Guardians of the Globe. So, I think it's really funny. I think it's a really well written way of dealing with this issue to keep you on the tenterhooks for the whole episode going into the finale next week. But it is this final point really is about what can stop Omni-Man. We've had mentions of it throughout the show where you have this super being, and it is something that people talk about with Superman obviously a lot, and this is the version of Superman here. It's what would happen if the most powerful man on the planet turns on everybody else. How do we stop him? And I like that they brought pretty much everything in that Cecil has been trying to save up to stop Omni-Man right from the start. We have the security guys that are actually in the house of Omni-Man waiting for him to arrive home, and they show how quickly he deals with all of them as well, even though they've got their invisibility gear on. Yeah,
and that was one of the best, because you get to start later to see the more hazy distortion of the bad guys. But before, to that point when he just reached out, the first one where he slams the guy's head down.
Yeah.
It's so instantaneous. It's just like snap, and then he's just down. And I'm like, what the? Oh, and then you get to see all the rest of them in there.
Yeah.
And it's the Batman. I don't know what the Batman protocols are. That's what I call them in my head. Isn't there a whole storyline for Batman where he kind of basically keeps the weaknesses of all the Justice League members on file?
Yes.
So in case he ever needs to kill the Flash, here's how you would do it. He plans them all.
Yes, he does. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, but that moment in the house where he's pulling off the arm of invisible people, ripping people in half, kicking one of them through a wall, and they twist over themselves.
Oh, what? And then crawls with the legs facing the other direction. I was like,
this is brutal.
Yeah,
and that's what sets up Donald, Cecil's second in command, Donald, because
R.I.P.
That is, the agent is looking directly across the road at the house that's been monitoring their house for so long. And this then leads to Donald setting off a bomb, saying, as you say, R.I.P. Donald. He's gone now, as he sets off the bomb to try and take out Omni-Man. I think Cecil makes a mention that they've actually cleared out the whole neighborhood but even still, they can't have a big enough explosion to affect Omni-Man. It'll only put him out for an hour or two, and then the explosion dissipates, and Omni-Man is, of course, standing there absolutely fine and ready to walk on to his next challenge, I suppose.
It's quite sad that we do lose our Coulson. Like, Donald is the Coulson of this series, and I found it just hilarious that there's an element where they both sacrifice themselves to attempt to stop the big bad of the Avengers, or in Loki case, and in this, an Omni-Man. And neither worked.
yeah, absolutely.
As you say, it's this kind of, it does nothing. It literally does nothing, because Omni-Man goes and then looks to find Mark, continues to try and find, because he then goes to William, and then it's the, essentially the teleporter conversation between Debbie and Cecil. You have to have your watch on in order to teleport, which, okay, they're adding a rule, makes sense.
Absolutely.
I'll call from the comic books, which is one funny thing that they never call out here, which is in the comic books, the reason he was like, oh my god, you've teleportation technology, like we can go anywhere and do anything. And he's like, yeah, it costs $5 billion every time I use the machine. And there's a fun part in it where you get a scene like this, where he's teleporting back and left and right and center and stuff. Yeah. And essentially you're going like 5 billion, 10 billion, 15, like 100 billion. And it's just like racking up. And that would have been fun, because that would have been a nice Easter egg for this.
Yeah.
Like he could have gone ding, 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 dollar signs. But this is the fun part, because we do get Cecil attacks Omni-Man, and he's like, do you think that would hurt? And it's like, no, like it was to get your attention while we attempt other things, and essentially fires in the anime. What did you think of this? Because you did ask me, did they come back?
Yeah, absolutely. I was really surprised it was this quick. This is the kind of thing I meant, whether they were pulling stuff from much later on in the comics to not burn some storylines, to use some storylines from later on in the comics, because I felt like D.A. Sinclair was taken away last episode.
Yeah.
And we kind of felt, he's going to be using him for some purpose. He seems very interested in this kid who's created, the Reaniman. And to see these cyborgs back one episode later, a new army effectively to go up against Omni-Man, seemed really surprising, because I don't think any time has passed since the battle with the Reanimen. That was like yesterday, because William and Mark have just arrived home. So
48 hours, I think. That's the kind of like the gist.
But hey, it's a cartoon. It's an animated show from a comic book. I could let that slide, but it just felt, because D.A. Sinclair had only been with them for a really short time, it felt really surprising that he'd been able to sort it out. But then again, he did do his work pretty quickly. He kidnapped Rick on a Saturday, I think, of the weekend, and then by the Sunday he was already a Reaniman. So so he does work fast.
And we do get told these Reanimen are previous soldiers,
doing
their country a service one last time, which is interesting.
One last time, because they do get brutally murdered once again by Nolan.
They really do. This is new for the show,
right?
This is even this for me is a weird one. It feels too pulled forward,
right?
Like it is dramatically pulled forward.
Yeah.
I suppose, look, no one is watching this for, like, David Attenborough level realism. It's like not. Planet Earth is like, well, technically, it would take this long.
Yeah, you may have turned that off after episode 1, if you're looking for realism.
Yes, exactly. So no, I think, and you're right, it's a comic book. I just think it does feel slightly out of place, but then you're like, grand. Like, we'll roll with it, because you're seeing cyborgs fighting Omni-Man.
Exactly. And there's another 5 more battles that he has to have, including the laser from space, which I thought had actually worked. I thought that the laser that had pushed Omni-Man into the earth as it was pounding down on top of him. And then unfortunately, as always with any type of gun, it has to kind of be reloaded to be used again. And by the time it's reloaded, Omni-Man takes it out of space and destroys it. So yeah, another completely useless tool. That is the one where they talk about the expense of creating that and how much it costs every time they fire the laser. So I guess that's similar to the teleportation device of the comic books, that's where the joke sits. Yeah.
Yeah, but this one hurt me because they just killed those birds. They did not need to show those birds dying from the radiation poisoning. That was just like senseless. Like, ow, come on!
And all the woodland animals being caught in the initial blast as well, just burning up.
They really did. Like, they went a bit like, I was like, oh. Okay, we didn't need to see poor, like, Bugs Bunny getting, like, slowly cremated to death, and then, like, Daffy Duck basically dying from radiation poisoning. Like, that... Ow. I'm not Peter or anything, but ow.
I thought it was a pretty good way to show the power of the weapon that they were using. Exactly. Especially because nothing's had any effect on Omni-Man at this stage, so it's kind of showing you this is now a level way up from the bomb that was set up by Donald.
Yeah.
Because they're now out in the desert. They can do this, but there is still a cost, even though it's in the desert, right?
There is, because we still see the second shot. Nothing happens, but it does ring true, and it ignites, and Adam Eve and poor old Mark able to see the sprinkling and the explosion and come a running. But then we get essentially what I love, one of the best of it, is the kaiju.
Yes, absolutely.
Amped up on steroids. I love how they just say, we pumped him with the best shit we could give him. And I'm like...
and send him out to fight you. Yeah. He's blaming you for everything, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, alright, so you basically you've just roided out a kaiju. I'm like, alright, yeah, no, that was fun. I like the idea of that, like...
Yeah, and it's a callback back to episode 3, isn't it? That Cecil had said, you had a bit of trouble with that kaiju. Maybe we should put that on ice, so that we can use it in case of this happening. But it does beg the question, of course, if you are trying to stop your greatest villain, effectively, if Omni-Man turns on you and you're trying to find something to stop him, and that something is alive that he stopped before, well, how the hell do you stop that thing that beat Omni-Man then if you have no more weapons, effectively? So yeah.
He basically, that's the one where, like, he takes out a little pen, clicks it 3 times, and a little bomb goes off in the back of the kaiju's brain or something.
Maybe.
It's just like, or it's basically Mark. Their expectation is Mark will be able to beat the kaiju. I like this. This continuous. There was a old Greek one where you have to, like, the 12 levels of hell that you have to keep kind of battling through different gates, and each gate of hell is progressively worse and harder and stuff. That's kind of what we're seeing here. Omni-Man is he's beating down everything Cecil's throwing at him.
Yeah.
And Cecil's constantly having to throw, like, the pits of hell. Like, I was expecting Dark Blood almost level stuff to come out.
Yeah. I was definitely getting some visions of the Invincible video game, that this is exactly how it would be, like Mortal Kombat kind of thing, where where each stage is a greater enemy for Omni-Man. But it does lead to the team up, effectively, and Mark even calls it out. It's time for a team up, me and Dad taking down the kaiju, because nobody's been able to get in contact with him since his phone broke back at the attack in Upstate University. So so yes, we have a team up here between the two of them, and they still are struggling against this kaiju. It's not an easy fight.
No,
I think there's even points when we see Debbie's watching on from back in headquarters, and you see Mark stuck in between the teeth of this kaiju, about to be bitten down on before Omni-Man saves him. So yeah, it does seem like this would be a massively difficult challenge for each of them, but together they're able to take him out. Yeah,
and then we get the introduction of the fun, the third wheel, if you will, the spoke, the spanner in the works, I can't think of any old, tired, kind of cliches. So what I will just say is, the Immortal.
Chris has run out of cliches.
Oh no, I've not run out. I can't think of any right now. Give me a second.
Oh no, it's okay.
Okay, sure, okay. You sure?
Yes, let's go on to the reveal of the Immortal. You did kind of tease this back in episode 2 when we were talking about the character called Immortal. Possibility of them coming back. Wasn't expecting it the way that it came from. So I think the setup in this episode of having a collar to control anybody, and the Muller twins saying that they were going out to get the Immortal in the post-credit scene a couple of episodes ago, pieced that all together.
Yeah.
Wasn't expecting rage-filled Immortal just to go straight after Omni-Man after returning. Very cool moment.
I love that you get to see the Immortal throughout the years. That was so fun.
That was giving me flashbacks to the movie Highlander, because I think you see him as in a kilt, I think, at the start, or it's some kind of civil war early on, and then we see him kind of through the ages.
He was Abe Lincoln.
That was, I guess, Abe Lincoln survived the assassination attempt. Then it was the Immortal that was taking his place at the time, or was him at the time. I guess is the reason. Yeah,
that's the thing. This is this is the character I said I teased, which was his name's Immortal.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna come back. He's back. It's great because you do get that. Yeah, it's essentially, I think he touched a big magic glowy orb with his sword back when the Vikings, the Celts, the Scots, all of that were all fighting together. The Norse became immortal.
Right.
You cannot kill him.
Right.
As long as his bits are together, he comes back to life.
Now, you say bits are together, and here we find his bits ripped apart completely by Nolan. But I still think he's probably a little more together than he was when Nolan took his head.
Exactly.
1. So yeah, we'll probably see Immortal again after this, though.
Yeah, he's immortal.
Yeah. Exactly. But the bigger implication here is that this was all on TV, because we had 2 camera crews here watching on. So we're watching another show where this pretty much exact same thing just happened, that we've just recently seen the implications of that. We're not going to talk about that show. We're going to talk about Invincible. But this is one where the world is watching on, and so's Mark. Mark has been fighting alongside Nolan for this whole battle, but sees him pull apart a former superhero that he hadn't been told that Nolan has killed now a second time, I suppose. And that's kind of, it looks like it's weighing on Mark. He knows there's something really wrong with his dad now. Yeah,
because literally, like, you get to see the kaiju hogtied behind Mark, and Mark's just floating there with his dad, which such a silhouette. I want to hand it to the director on that one. Just seeing Nolan drop the 2 body pieces, his hand up to his elbow, still covered in blood.
Yeah.
Because that death, I want to call it out. Like, five-finger death punch literally carves through the Immortal. And I know we had seen that take his head, but like, it's like he cut with a knife and then closed his fist to make it the hammer. And I was like, oof. Like, and the way they did it was just, I want to, beautiful is the wrong word. The animation style, the choice of way they did, which was, it slowed and you saw the resistance of coming out the other side.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it just, everything slowing and then speeding back up, and just then, like, the silhouette of, as I said, the silhouette of Omni-Man, the zoom in on Mark going, Dad, and then, Mark, we need to talk.
Yeah.
Dung!
Absolutely. And even just the idea that just before dying, Immortal has pushed his fingers almost through the eyeballs of Nolan, showing that he can be affected at least by something, and the Immortal could have been that person. So I wonder, is that a clue to why Nolan's done what he's done, where the Guardian's a threat to him in the future? Maybe that was the reason. And now that Mark's got his powers, they're a threat to his son, and that's the reason he did it. I think the only real indication that we get through this episode is we wouldn't have been safe, and you don't know whether he's talking about the planet wouldn't have been safe, or whether he's talking about him and Debbie wouldn't have been safe, and him, Debbie and Mark, or just Mark. So I'm really looking forward to seeing next week when that conversation continues, or will it just be another episode of, we'll tell you next season if we get a season of what happened, or go read my comic books.
They have to. I don't think I think they're going to have to do it very early on in the beginning almost of the next episode, because essentially they've built it up so much in this episode alone, just that we need to talk this, and this, they started giving the conversation, the well, at least Nolan's side of it at the beginning.
We'll
and
get
I
it
think,
next week.
I just, it landed so hard in the comic books.
Right.
And I'm hoping it lands as hard in this. And I think it's going to be so fun to see the reactions. I really want to see from our fellow Guardians what they think. I want to see what you think. and I'm going to go through what I thought when I originally read the comic books, and I'll talk to you about like what I thought when I kind of obviously watch the next episode and see how it compares and things like that. But I think it's just going to be one of those, and then the questions, the penny drops, and you remember that you have those little toys where you put the penny at the top and goes ding 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 ding.
Do I remember, Chris? That is now a daytime TV quiz show where they have the coin dropping down to answer questions. Yes, I absolutely remember this.
Oh my god, they make anything a game show now.
Yes, they would. Yes.
But more importantly, back onto this show, I can't wait to see the puzzle pieces click for everyone. I think that's going to be the fun part.
Absolutely.
And I also want to see your face. I'm not going to get actually, due to COVID, I won't get to see your face. I'll get to talk to your face after.
I may. As I say, I'm off on annual leave on holidays next week, Chris, and I think you might be off as well. So maybe I might Skype you into my first watch at 6 a.m.
Oh my god, that'd be so fun.
Oh no, it'll be 6 a.m. You're right. I will not Skype you. I might just record it and send it to you, Chris.
Yes, that would be good. That's actually no. We're gonna. Yeah, I want to do that. Yeah, I want to see you react.
I'll see. 6 a.m. is still 6 a.m. Not usually up for cameras at that time of the morning, but we'll see. That's it, I think, for all of our major points for the episode. Anything that we want to call out that we haven't talked about, Chris?
Just one really quick bit from me, which is the coffee mug. Again, this is a nice little callback. I talked about the Easter eggs. The coffee mug that Eve is using is the Teen Team logo.
Oh, and right.
It comes literally. We saw this back in the second episode on the tower. It like literally. It's that like reference to the earlier thing. Oh my god!
Excellent.
And then the immortal being ripped in two is literally panel for panel, storyboard for storyboard, if you want to go animated for animated, from issue 10 of the comic books. And seeing that rip in two is just seeing that for the first time was amazing.
Excellent. Yeah, really good stuff in this episode. And again, it feels like that seems really early. Episode 10 seems really early for that big moment to be revealed to the world, I suppose, that Nolan is a murderer, as opposed to someone that fights against bad guys. That feels really early, but I know that that's the story, that's the premise of Invincible. So really good to see on screen. The only one for me, I just really liked the fact there was no music and no post-credit scene after that. We need to talk about it because it is going. Just come back next week. We don't need to give you any more now. We're done. We're getting out of here. Off we go.
I was kind of hoping that they'd shadow drop it. Just like Beyonce. Just like later on today, they'd be like, you know what?
Oh,
boom!
The last episode? Why would they do that?
I know.
The finale of Falcon the Winter Soldier was also on the same day. They need to cut their niche out. They've got a full week next week with nothing big coming out.
Oh, that's true.
This will be the big one for Invincible coming out next Friday.
And everyone has time to binge it. If your friends aren't watching the show, get them to watch this, and then they're just in time for the finale.
Absolutely, yeah. Hopefully everybody will catch up in time for next week's finale. Chris, do you defend Invincible episode 7? We need to talk.
Yeah. No beating around the bush, as I have not done for many of these episodes. Yes, 100%. I defend this. I think they're doing everything right. The one thing I'll call out is just I think the anime pull from so later on in the comic book runs, the series, just feels it feels out of place. Yeah. It's just slightly, how'd they do that? So it does kind of make you, if you're watching as intently as the rest of us.
Yeah. If you're thinking about it for a podcast, that's the kind of thing that pop into your head. Yeah. Why is the level 5 bad guy been created in 24 hours? But hey, as we say, D.A. Sinclair, a much smarter man than I am, so potentially he has created them really, really quick. There's a reason.
Yes, but then, Derek, do you defend this episode?
I really defend this episode. Yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. I think this idea of stretching out the what is it that Nolan's done? Why has he done it? The idea of stretching out the way they did throughout this episode was really good. And as I say, the level by level, increasingly more difficult ways of stopping Nolan. Again, another another great way to get to deliver the episode the way they've delivered it. And also just the side stuff. I thought William was hilarious in this episode. Some really good, funny moments with him. And I love the idea that Amber had always known that Mark was invincible, or had known for a very long time, let's say, that Mark was invincible. I thought that was dealt with really well. Really enjoying the series and really happy with this as the penultimate episode, leading into hopefully a very exciting finale next week.
Yeah.
Let's get on to some feedback, Chris. Got a couple of messages into us about Invincible. First up, we got an email in from Parthenia Locklear. Had some general thoughts on the series because she hadn't been able to send us an email across the show so far. She says, "Hey guys, I've really been enjoying your coverage of this show. I've also really been enjoying Invincible as well. It's an adult cartoon that I've been waiting for. It's not like when you watch anime with the over-exaggerated voiceovers and horrible translations." Mark really didn't take enough time choosing his hero name at all, though, did he? I totally get back in episode 6 when he has his ass handed to him, and now that that's making him reevaluate his future as a superhero. Also, it makes him take his relationship and friendships more seriously. I'm glad that his best friend figured out who he was. Finally, someone can see that their friend is actually the hero, with just part of their face covered. I did feel that Amber came down a bit too hard on him, just assuming that he ran away. He had a very plausible story of going to get help. Also, I was very shocked about him making permanent plans to go to college with her, but then doesn't tell her that he's invincible, which would solve his problems with her. It makes me think perhaps he really isn't done with being a super just yet, and he's still grappling with his emotions as teenagers do. Finally, I was very surprised that the episode did not mention him seeing his father as he was almost dying. I'm sure it will come up later. I just expected it to be this episode. Did Nolan kill the tailor? How long will he entertain this rift between him and his wife? I think he would totally kill her if he had to. Also, can Black Samson not feel that his powers have possibly returned? Or where are his powers anyway? Thanks, guys. Keep up the good reviews and keep the coffee and wine flowing, from Parthenia. It's really interesting points there, Parthenia. And a lot answered in this episode. So really the reason why Amber came down hard on Mark, as hard as she does on him, was because he didn't even give her the real excuses. He made up lies to cover the fact that he was invincible rather than actually saying to her he was. And he tried to, and paused like he did in this episode. So I think that's the real reason why Amber was so hard on him.
Agreed. And just in terms of Nolan killing the tailor, I hope not.
Yeah.
I hope he's still alive, because Mark Hamill's amazing.
That's true. That's true. But as I mentioned earlier on, the idea of replacing your suit every week when it gets ripped in battle, that it's only a certain number of people have those sets of skills. Yes. And he seems to have worked with art for a very long time as well. So potentially, he hasn't killed him yet.
Yes.
In terms of Black Samson, we see in this episode that he knows he's got his powers back. At this stage, he kind of felt that he was more powerful just as he woke up effectively from his coma last episode. But this episode he even has a new outfit, I think. In this episode, he no longer has the robot suit or the power suit that he was wearing earlier on in the season. He's got his new superhero suit. Chris, any idea what his powers were? Yeah,
so his powers were kind of analogous to Black Lightning in the DC universe, in that he's got flight, strength, durability, and some form of less so than Black Lightning, who can actually shoot lightning from his hands.
Hence the name.
Black Samson has more just kind of like sparks and a bit of electricity. But
he can shoot Samsons from his hands, I guess.
Yes, exactly. Little small versions of himself.
No.
Yes.
No, he can't do that.
Okay. No. No, he's just more... his whole thing is pretty much... Think Luke Cage, but with a small bit of electricity bolts. But he's mostly known for, in the comic books, losing his powers, being original Guardians of the Globe, losing his powers, getting the suit, a power suit, becoming a new Guardian member of the Globe. Mm-hmm. And then kind of, again, getting his powers back only to who knows what happens.
Exactly. Well done. Well caught, Chris. Well caught. Thanks so much, Parthenia, for your feedback. We also got some Facebook feedback from Dr. Bob Phillips.
Yes. Dr. Bob had this to say about the final episode. So Amber had figured it out all along. And why wouldn't she? She's super bright, superheroes exist, etc. And frankly, has made the right choice when it comes to Mark. I think the pinnacle of power is the ability to make coffee with the flick of an atomic hand from when you're under your covers. But couldn't Eve at least have a different outfit to sleep in? No? As for the bloody mess of multiple eviscerations, I'm so impressed with the quantity of colon on display. It's seriously underplayed in most stories and lovely to see them revel in it here. Robot isn't a robot? Check. Robot loves Monster Girl? Check. DA Evil gets his cyborgs used by Cecil? Check. Where's Damien Darkblood to save the day?
Ooh.
Or will it be 11? After all, it's a Demogorgon that's been let loose in the fields of fury. Wow, that was a deep cut Stranger Things reference in the end there.
Yes, it was.
Yes, okay. I followed that, and the Demogorgon, it was actually a kaiju, but we'll let it slide.
Absolutely. It's very hard to tell the difference between demogorgons and kaiju as well.
Not if you're a D&D player. Hold on.
True. I love your reference there, Dr. Bob, to the multiple eviscerations with lots of colon on display. I think even in this episode we had a camera shoved into someone's colon, just so Cecil could see exactly what was happening to his people. This is a really good episode. Where is Damien Darkblood? There is a line from Nolan in this episode where he talks about his suit and why he kept it, the one he killed the Guardians of the Globe with, and he says he kept it to kill Damien Darkblood. We obviously haven't seen that, so it sounds like he was keeping the suit so he could kill Damien Darkblood, ending the investigation that he had. I think that's what he meant by that line.
Yeah, I kind of took it from that too. It was a bit of a weird one. In that, I think he was trying to say that, yes, I kept the suit above my door frame in my kitchen to entrap Damien Darkblood so that I could kill him.
Maybe. And
stop the investigations, and it just stopped anyway because Cecil sent Darkblood back to hell.
Yeah. And he had the information he needed.
Yeah,
which was that. Yeah, he didn't need him anymore. Yeah. Interesting stuff. Thanks so much for your feedback, Dr. Bob. Next up, Donald Dennis says, another action-packed episode and filled with tense action. I feel pretty pleased with myself for figuring out Robot wasn't just a robot, but I guess I didn't get full credit because I didn't guess it was just a drone being piloted remotely. I don't really blame Amber for still being upset after 5 months of erratic behaviour, but she could have come clean with Mark that she knew earlier. I hope she's still part of the series because she was the interesting person in that coupling. The kaiju fight was pretty neat, and I was kind of surprised that Mark kept it alive and tied it up instead of putting it down. Heck, Amber even busted Mark's balls for running away when she knew he was the one fighting the robot men. That I have a little problem with. Thanks, Donald. Yeah, I suppose it's just one of those things with Amber. She kind of felt like she was expecting Mark to tell her. It's his kind of secret to tell almost, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. I suppose it's... If your superhero boyfriend is actually a superhero and you figure it out and you're like, why hasn't he told me yet? I know he's doing this.
Exactly.
Yeah. Personally, I'm with Mark.
Okay.
And I'm with Donald kind of going, she should have kind of just went, hey, and she covers the top part of his face with her hand at some point and goes, you look a lot like drop the hints at least that you know.
Right. I'm kind of with Amber here, the idea that he wouldn't trust her. This is months of their relationship kind of thing, and he's tried to tell her a few times. He's kind of stuttered, saying I'm a couple of times, but yeah, I think he should have told her. I think it's all on her.
This is why you and I will never work as a romantic pairing.
That's true. Thanks, Donald.
Thanks, Donald. Next up, we also got a tiny bit of feedback from Ray Felix, who said, I thought Omni was going to kill his wife. Who knows? He still may. Great cartoon. Yeah, this is very true. There was a potential there where he was kind of balling his fists. Mm-hmm. Last night he kind of broken that hole in the wall, and then now he just broke a hole in the ceiling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of going, when she told him to leave the house and he flew up through the ceiling, I was kind of going, yeah, they're probably not going to be able to come back to this house. And then he destroyed the house completely in that fight with the with the agents around the house, completely destroyed the house. So luckily she's in realty, right? So she should be able to get a new house.
She'll find a new one. Also, Cecil will buy her a new one.
Probably. I do feel though Debbie is in a dangerous position with Nolan. I know exactly what you mean, Ray. I did feel like getting her out of there was the right choice.
Yes, 100%.
We also got a voicemail in from Greg Schwam.
Hey, Derek and Chris, this is Greg. So apparently Robot really just, all of his machinations were all so that he could become a real boy, or at least a non-deformed boy with, able to have a companion in Monster Girl. Like, I get that. And he's not a real robot. It's crazy. I really like the concept that Robot and all of his different variations were just drones being controlled by the very non-nefarious and heroic human shell. Although I don't necessarily know that the science holds up with the transfer of brain power and whatnot, given the increased cerebellum size. And I don't know if new Rex would, I don't know, maybe Robot gave the Muller twins some pretty solid information and background. Anyway, big things besides this robot, or in this episode besides Robot, which I was a little bit disappointed that the younger Robot wasn't also voiced by Jason Mantzoukas. But the very Peter Parker-ish attitude of Mark regarding his heroing business. Like, you know what? I screwed up everything. I can't do this anymore. I don't know how many times we saw Peter do that throughout the Spider-Man runs, but it was a lot. But I really like Eve and her, hey, with great power comes great responsibility, and it's your duty to help people out. And then the superhero or superpowered kaiju ends up being beaten by Mark, who, maybe Omni-Man could have handled him eventually, but Omni-Man was busy re-killing the reanimated, restored Immortal. So Immortal just kind of had a bad series of episodes. All right. Look forward to the podcast, and really enjoyed the episode. Thanks. Bye.
Immortal definitely did have a bad day once again, didn't he?
Yeah, he's just like, I was alive. I'm dead. I wake up. Where's Omni-Man?
Exactly.
Come on.
Exactly. We didn't actually talk about it much on the podcast that it was Mark that stopped the kaiju. And does that make him more powerful than Nolan? So I know that there is the whole speculation from Cecil, that Mark is the only one that can take down Nolan, but Nolan wasn't able to take down the kaiju alone. Mark did and tied him up. So I wonder, is that an indication that Mark is more powerful than Nolan?
Could be. Yeah, no, definitely. I do like the idea that Mark is de facto Peter Parker with the walk away.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime anyone talks about Spider-Man, Peter Parker walking away, literally I think of the Spider-Man No More cover where
Absolutely.
It's basically the suits in the bin.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I see it in my head every single time. Yeah.
And I could see them doing something like that.
Mm-hmm.
In season 2 or something, like where they do a freezer. Because if you're not, please jump over to Twitter and some of the other kind of social media channels for Invincible, particularly because they have just every week they come out with artwork for each of the episodes.
Mm-hmm. The posters, yeah.
The posters.
Really good.
And they're just, Derek's been sharing them in our Facebook group.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do see some of the relation to Spider-Man in this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for your voicemail, Greg.
Yeah, thank you so much, Greg.
We are going to close out our feedback section with a voicemail from Steve Brown.
Hey guys, it's Steve, and I just finished Invincible episode 7. We need to talk, and wow, really, really good. A couple of quick things. Nolan says the name of the episode at the very end. I thought that was great. And that reveal that Amber has known all along that Mark was invincible. That's an interesting wrinkle that we've never really explored in these tropes of superhero, where it's not that she doesn't trust him because he was running away, or she thought he was being a coward. She doesn't trust him because he didn't trust her with his secret earlier. And, Eve kind of confirms that, well, yeah, maybe you should have revealed yourself to her. I thought you'd figure that out yourself, but that was, and then I absolutely loved the voice switch. And I did the Amazon Prime, trivia thing that said that they had Ross Marquand actually try to be, like mimic, Jason Mantzoukas' voice as a younger person, but with the cadence of Zachary Quinto's character Robot. So it's really great to see and hear Ross Marquand and he's got some great voice acting chops. All right. Can't wait to watch it again. Talk to you guys later.
I absolutely love Ross Marquand. If you don't know who he is, he was in The Walking Dead. He's still in The Walking Dead. And he also took over the role of Red Skull in Avengers Endgame. He played about 4 or 5 characters at the start of this season as well. I don't think Ross Marquand has actually done a massive amount of animated shows before now, but I know he does impersonations, and he's been well known for recording his impersonations. There's a great YouTube video. I think he does about 12 or 13 impersonations on it. Go check him out. But, you're totally right, Steve. That is so cool that was the direction he was given. Here's the actor that plays Rexplode. Try and do him with the cadence of the actor that plays Robot. Merge the two of them together. Oh, and also, can you make him younger as well? Can you make him like 12 or 13 as well? And Ross Marquand pulled it off really well. You could tell what he was doing there. It didn't sound like either character, but sounded like a bit of a mix of both. So, really, really cool.
Yeah, I love Ross and I love Jason. Jason, for me, I have been a fan of since the days of The League. He was in The League, which is a US comedy show. And it's a US American football comedy show, I should say. And it sounded like a teenage Jason Mantzoukas.
There you go.
And I was like, okay, he nailed it, yeah.
I can't believe I didn't name drop there either and say that I interviewed Ross Marquand up on stage in London in front of a couple of thousand Walking Dead fans.
I was waiting
pretty
for
awesome.
that.
Yeah, I know. You forgot that I did that, Chris. About 2 years ago, actually.
Yeah,
2 years ago
back
last
when we
week.
had. Yeah, back when we could be outside and see people and touch people, and you got to touch him.
He did shake my hand, and he was
Yes.
absolutely lovely. He met me before the interview. He was really, really
sweaty?
nice. He was lovely. No, I was sweaty. I was the one nervous.
Dripping with wet.
The handshake didn't last very long because of my sweat. No, not at all. True professional. Lovely guy too. And I'm so glad to see that he's getting more roles on the show. I think he's played more characters in the show than anybody else because he played, 3 characters in the first episode. And then obviously with Immortal returning this episode, I think he probably provided the grunts and groans for Immortal in that fight, the episode here, and Young Robot as well. So yeah, he's gotten loads and loads of parts and well deserved. Really like
Exactly.
it. Thanks so much once again for your voicemail, Steve. Really good to hear from you.
Yes, thank you so much, Steve. And thank you so much for everyone sending in your voicemails, your feedback so far. This is it. This is the end of the penultimate episode of our penultimate episode review of Invincible. So yeah, make sure you get in any total feedback you have for the next episode ahead of schedule. So go on over to tvpodcastindustries.com where you can leave us a voicemail, or you can send us a voicemail, or just a standard email. We take text, we read it out by sending it to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. Don't forget, you can also subscribe and make sure you never miss an episode by going to any Flying or Grounded, Invincible or Squishy podcast catcher service, and we are there. We can head on to tvpodcastindustries.com and you find all the links and the subscribes, the shares, the reviews. Any reviews is always welcome. 5 stars, always best. If it's a 1 star, just don't. It's okay.
Absolutely. And really important that Chris mentions that here because we're coming up to the last episode of Invincible. I know loads of our listeners are subscribing on the Boys and Invincible podcast, specifically for those shows, but we do cover lots more over on TV Podcast Industries. We'd love if you jumped over to our main feed where you get access to everything that we podcast about, over at tvpodcastindustries.com. We'll be back later this weekend with the finale of Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode 6, which aired today on Disney Plus. I'm looking forward to talking about that one with you, Chris.
Oh, yes.
It's going to be fun. I know you haven't seen it yet either, and you're excited.
No, I haven't. I'm literally finishing this recording and going downstairs to watch it. It is going to be a good one, ladies and gentlemen. But don't forget, you can support us over on patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries, where just for a dollar bill, you can help keep the podcast servers going, the wheels going, and more importantly, our producer extraordinaire, our director, our editor, the one and only co-host, Derek, in coffee, and at this point in night, in red wine, or at least a beer, because it takes a while to keep editing late into the wee hours because I won't do it. Yeah, I'm terrible. Give me the slack. Pay him and give me the slack.
Well, you know, the best thing we could do, Chris, is close out the podcast right there. Thanks so much for joining us this time. We'll be back with the finale of Invincible next week.
Yes, thank you so much. Keep watching, keep listening, and keep being invincible.
Bye.